Next, we have the Civilian Assistance and Reemployment Program of the U.S. Department of Defense. To make this presentation, Diane Disney, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Civilian Personnel Policy, Ellen Tunstall, Chief Civilian Assistance and Reemployment Division.
Thank you. When most people think of the Department of Defense, they think of people in uniform. What they generally do not know is that DoD employs about 1 million civilians, or roughly half of the federal civil servants. This decade, as you probably know, the department is reducing its numbers by 1/3. Since 1989, DoD has eliminated over 250,000 civilian positions. We've accounted for virtually all of the federal reductions. We're committed to continuing these reductions, but we need to meet several other goals as well. We have to maintain readiness, quality, and diversity, and we have to manage the downsizing humanely and efficiently. Doing these things has meant minimizing the number of involuntary separations, jargon for layoffs, and to help those few employees we actually do have to lay off. Our approach combines all staff reduction and transition programs into one unit, which we call CARE for Civilian Assistance and Reemployment. The materials you've received describe the elements of the program. So what we're going to do is that Ellen Tunstall will describe some of the particular successes, and I will come back to speak about some adaptations.
The Philadelphia Naval Shipyard was targeted by the 1991 base closure process. So far, our separation incentives, the priority placement program, and normal attrition in combination with career transition center programs have enabled the shipyard to eliminate over 3,000 civilian employees. They've done that with only 38 permanent employees being involuntarily separated. The Sacramento Army Depot's 2,800 civilian positions have been eliminated, with only 15 employees involuntarily laid off. And had those few employees been willing to relocate, we would have been able to find jobs for them also. Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, Colorado employed 884 civilian employees a year ago. They have none today. Only 6 were laid off, and eventually these 6 were subsequently offered jobs. This reduction was so well managed that there have been no Merit Systems Protection Board appeals, union grievances, or EEO complaints. We also saved $550,000 and avoided involuntary dislocations. We've been successful because of our combination of mandatory internal placements, voluntary separation incentives, aggressive outplacement, transition assistance, and most importantly, collaboration with workers, local officials, private sector employers, and other federal agencies, particularly the Department of Labor and the Office of Personnel Management. Diane.
DoD civilians perform the same range of functions as those working anywhere else in government, with a few additional specialties thrown in, of course. They're also subject to the same civil service rules. Therefore, what we've been able to do for them can be done in other governmental arenas as well, and indeed in the private sector. For example, a state or a large city government, maybe Indianapolis, could replicate our priority placement program and retain its investment in human capital. The size would make the system workable. Also, our experience suggests very strong union cooperation. For the record, DoD has 1,500 local unions, all of which work to retain jobs. Second, governments of any size could use the buyouts we developed if they're targeted to surplus occupations and not treated as entitlement. Indeed, parts of the federal civil service have already been using them. County governments and regional associations could adapt our defense outplacement and referral system. This would make employees' resumes available to private sector employees. This approach could even be part of an aggressive economic development campaign by highlighting the availability of skilled labor. In short, then, we believe that everything we have done within the Department of Defense can now be adapted elsewhere. The key is to unify the effort and to move from the theory to practice. Because we've been downsizing for several years and at different rates according to functions and locations, we are not going to allow our program to remain static. We continue to pull together field staffers, union officials, policy specialists, and managers for ideas to improve the system. We want to make the process even more effective, efficient, and humane. At DOD, we really care about care.
Thank you. What time remains? It's over. First question from Don.
Downsizing has been going on in the private sector for some time. Are there techniques which have been used there, which you have borrowed? Are there techniques which have been used there which for some reason you have not been able to use because you are a government agency, and if so, what are they?
We are not, as you point out, the first entity to face the need for major downsizing. And what we have done is try to learn everything we can from what's happened in the corporate sector. We have a major forum coming up this fall bringing in private sector representatives just to share knowledge with us in particular. Some of the things that can be done in the private sector cannot in the federal civil service simply because it is civil service. One of the things that's innovative about what we've done is that we've gotten ideas from elsewhere and managed to get legislative changes to enable us to do them, such as the buyout program and the early retirement authority. We have a new program which is a non-federal hiring incentive where we will provide up to $10,000 to help retrain an individual or supplement the first year's salary if a private sector employer picks that person up.
You cited an example, the Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, and the downsizing from, I think, 900 personnel to only 6 involuntary layoffs. Can you describe in a little more detail, personalize that? What did happen to the 900? What were the alternative approaches that were used? That would enable, I think, us to understand better what you are seeking to accomplish.
Mr. Milliken, at all of our installations where we're downsizing, you will find a different variety of innovations and initiatives depending on the needs of the workforce. At Lowry, we used our priority placement program, which takes employees from Lowry and puts them into other vacant positions within the Department of Defense. We also aggressively worked...
Within the area, within the region, or
It could have been within the region. It could have been anywhere in the United States, and we pay for the cost of relocation, believing that it is better for us to maintain that human capital within the department. We also worked aggressively with other federal agencies in the Lowry area to establish places where we could move our employees to other federal agencies. We paid a number of employees separation incentives of $25,000 to voluntarily leave the department. We offered them the opportunity to retire at reduced age and service requirements, again, to encourage voluntary attrition. So it's those combinations of tools working with other agencies and other employers that help us find places for the employees.
Thank you. 2 questions, Max and Dot.
One of the concerns is that you've dealt with an immediate short-term problem, but you still have the long-term problem of tracking or following these several hundred employees. Have you addressed that yet, or are there plans to determine how well and what's happening to those people?
Tracking them in what sense, sir?
And as far as their job, wherever they've moved, what they're doing, how they're able to...
As we find them new jobs, they remain part of the DOD family. And so anything that we do with them, we do with everybody else as well. We have 2 special research initiatives underway right now to be able to track to see which of our particular incentives has been most helpful, and how we know that when we replace them, the wages are comparable to what they were making before. We are now trying to track the people we have placed in the private sector so that we can make the same kinds of judgments.
One last question, I believe. Dot.
Yeah, that actually was a variation on what I was going to ask. I didn't know whether you all had the capacity or the ability to follow up on all of these people, no matter what happened to them afterwards, whether they stayed within the Department of Defense or were outside, or, you know, where are you in that, and who's doing it?
We have not been able to track all of those who are outside the Department of Defense, but we have a research project underway right now which will enable us to do that. Those inside we do track.
But it is a Department of Defense project, or is it some other research organization that's doing it for some other purposes?
We will be doing that, a part of that will be done in conjunction with RAND, and some of it will be done in-house.
I might also add that for those employees who are involuntarily separated, who we actually lay off, we maintain them in our automated placement system for a minimum of a year after separation, with the attempt to continue to employ them within the department and then maintain them in another system in the local area to hope to place them after that 1 year.
We have 11,000 private sector employers in our DOORS database right now and have plenty of opportunities to find other jobs for people and keep